Hello and good morning friends, welcome to CEC live transmission. Dear friends, with our ongoing series on organizational behavior, in our previous session we discussed on what personality is. Today in this session we would be covering in detail various personality theories, and for this discussion we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Namita Rajput. Dr. Namita Rajput is a prolific professor. Currently she is a principal in Sri Aurobindo Evening College, University of Delhi. Dr. Rajput has authored number of books and number of articles have been published in reputed journals both at national and international level. So dear friends, today we would be talking in detail on personality theories, and if you want to ask questions from Dr. Namita Rajput, then you can call right in the studio, and for contacting her, for asking questions, you can contact her through our toll-free number. Our toll-free number is 1-800-110-430. I repeat the number is 1-800-110-430. So this is the number through which you can ask your question pertaining to the topic personality theories. So let's carry forward our lecture and let's discuss in detail what personality theories are. Hello ma'am, welcome to the lecture.
Very good morning friends. Today we have a topic called personality theories. We have already discussed what the personality means, what are the basic characteristics. Today we will be talking about the basic theories of personality. Now starting from the personality perspective, personality is a kind of a dynamic set of characteristics which is possessed by an individual, which defines the cognitions, behavior and overall personality of an individual. Now the word personality originates from the Latin word which means mask. So that means there are certain persons who has a set of characteristics in which they depict in the public and society, and that is called as a personality. Now taking this forward, we have the theories of personality in front of us today. We have discussed one or two before, but there are more theories in this regard, so which will be taking consideration of these theories in this lecture. The first theory is a trait theory. The second is a psychometric theory. The third is a social cognitive theories. Fourth is humanistic theories, and fifth is behavioral personality theories. So today we'll be talking about these five personality theories in this regard. Now starting from the first theory, that is the trait theory. Now it is an attempt to learn what traits make up the personality and how they relate to the actual behavior. Now psychodynamic theories focuses on the inner workings of personality, especially the internal conflicts and struggles. Humanistic theories, they focus on private subjective experience and the personal growth. Social cognitive theories, they center on attribute differences in personality to socialization, expectations and mental process. So we have discussed here the different types of theories which are mentioned on the screen. So we'll be starting from the first theory, that is the trait theory. That is, we attempt to learn here what the particular traits of an individual is, and that is tantamount to call as a trait theory. Whereas the psychodynamic theories, there are so many conflicts which are happening in the human mind. On some issues we say yes, on some issues we say no. So there is a constant series of the struggle and the conflicts which is happening around in an individual. So based on this you develop a particular theory which is called as a psychodynamic theory. Now third is the humanistic theory. Now basically it covers the personal growth of an individual, the experiences which he has gone through in his life and all the private things which has happened with him. So we try and cover these aspects in the humanistic theories of personality. Now taking it forward, the last theory which we talk about here is a social cognitive theory. That is, it gives the attribute differences in the personality to socialization, expectations and the mental process. Now we'll do this theory in detail. Now there is a Jungs theory of two types. The Carl Jung's theory is of two types, the introvert and the extrovert. Now Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist who was a Freudian discipline, believed that we are one of the two personality types. First is the introvert and the second is the extrovert. The introvert is basically the shy, self-centered person whose attention is focused inward, whereas the extrovert is bold, outgoing person whose attention is diverted and directed outside and the outward. So basically the Jungs theory of personality has centered around these two aspects, that is either the person can be introvert or the person can be extrovert. When you talk about the introvert person, the person is very, very shy, self-centric, and basically not ready to interact and socialize with the outside world, and they are very, very focused and self-centered. They want to be in their own cocoon and they do not want to come out of that cocoon, and their comfort zone is that only, because their basic nature is not to interact and socialize with the outside world. Whereas on the contrary, we talk about the extrovert person, they are overall very, very bold, they are outgoing, they love to socialize, and they are directed towards the outward disciplines only as far as the society is concerned. Now basically we talk about now the Eysenck three-factor theory, which is very important from the the personality perspective point of view. The Hans Eysenck was an English psychiatrist. He believed that there are three fundamental factors which are in the personality. The first is the introversion versus extroversion. The next is your emotional stable versus unstable neurotic, whereas the third is the impulse control versus psychotic. Now when you talk about this English psychiatrist, there are three types of personalities which we have talked about here. Introversion versus extroversion, which we have already discussed. The introvert person is self-centric. He do not want to socialize with the outside world, and he is very, very focused. And whereas on the contrary, the extrovert person is one who is very bold and they love to interact with the outside society and the world. Now coming on to the emotionally stable versus unstable person. Now there are emotions, interplay of emotions amongst every individual. When you talk about the living of an individual, whether you are in a corporate job or you are a housewife or you are into some kind of a politics, or maybe you are a scientist. So basically there are outbursts of emotions because whatever is happening at your workplace will have a strong spillover onto your personal life, and whatever is happening in your personal life, again it will have a strong impact on your professional life. So there is a constant and a consistent and a spectacular spillover as far as the emotions interplay is concerned. So when you are able to control your emotions, you are emotionally stable, and of course the rationality is more in this regard. You will be able to take better decision making. Whereas on the contrary, if you talk about the unstable person, who is also called as a neurotic person, is one who is not able to control any of the emotions, and he is very bad in decision making because he is carried away by the emotions. So there is an impulse behavior in this regard, there is an emotional interplay in this regard. So whatever decisions are taken in this state of mind when you are emotionally unstable is emotionally bad, and it is erotic, it is not rational. So as a matter of fact, the personality is very, very weak in this regard. Now the third is the impulse control versus psychotic. Now we'll take this forward by this theory, which is like continuing. The first two factors creates four combinations relating to four basic temperaments recognized by the ancient Greeks. The first is melancholic, that is introvert plus unstable. The second is choleric, that is extrovert plus unstable. The third is phlegmatic, that is introverted plus stable. And the last is sanguine, that is the extroverted plus stable. So we'll be talking about these factors, the combination of the factors which will define the personality of an individual. So here we have already discussed upon the first, that is the melancholic, that is he is an introvert plus unstable. So when a person is unstable also, he is an introvert person also. So the eventualities would be that the individual would be gloomy and sad. So the personality is strongly influenced by sadness and the gloominess. Now coming on to the second combination of the factors, that is the extroverted plus unstable. So which is also called as choleric personality. So in this personality, the main features here is that you get hot tempered, you are short tempered, and you're always irritable. So these kind of personalities are not liked by the individual because you are, taken away by the, always you're hot-headed, you are short-tempered, you're losing your temperament and you're always irritable. So this is not done in this regard, and the personality of these kind of features, people do not like these kind of choleric people. The next is phlegmatic personality. So here the combination is introverted plus stable. So in this the eventual results are that you become sluggish and you become calm. So here you do not want to grow, you just want to be taking the life as it comes. You do not want to have any kind of an ambition in your life. So this is also a very dangerous situation because these kind of personality people, they do not rise. The next is your sanguine, that is the extroverted plus stable. So in this regard, it is basically the cheerful and the hopeful people. So perhaps the sanguine people personality is supposed to be a very good personality because here the persons are stable also, they are extrovert also, they want to socialize with the outside world, they are very, very stable. So the eventualities is that they are very, very hopeful and they are very, very cheerful. So we have talked about basically 4 types of personalities, that is melancholic, choleric, phlegmatic and sanguine. So these are the various combinations which are present in the Jungs theory of personality. Now taking this forward, we have the cattle, source and the surface traits. So we'll be talking about here as Raymond Cattell. He is from a Devon. England believed that there are 2 types of basic categories of the traits, that is the surface traits of personalities and the source traits of personalities. Now the surface traits is that the features that make up the visible areas of personality is a surface trait, whereas the source trait is the underlying characteristics of an individual. So what is available eventually in front of everyone and it is visible to all type of people, we call it as a surface traits and everyone can view these kind of traits. Whereas the source traits, they are influenced by the underlying personality of an individual, that nobody will come to know that you are irritable. So because of what reasons you are irritable, if you are happy, for what reasons you are happy. So everything is hidden in this regard. Now the next is the cattle, the big 5. So we'll be discussing a very important personality characteristics, that is the cattle, the big 5 factors. The cattle believed that the 5 factors were most important. The first is the openness, the second is the conciseness, the third is the extroversion, fourth is agreeable and the last is neuroticism. So these are the 5 big factors which according to Cattell are most important for an individual to build his personality. So we'll be taking these one by one. Now the big 5, the first is the emotional stability. Now the emotional stability comes from the calm, anxious, secure and insecure. So if you are calm and anxious, if you are secure and insecure, we call it as an emotional stability. Whereas the extroversion, we talk about the social, sociable, retiring, fun-loving, sober. The openness we talk about as imaginative or practical and independent or conforming. The agreeableness talks about the soft-hearted, the ruthless, trusting, suspicious. And when we have conscientious people, we are either organized or we are unorganized. We are either careful or we are careless. So these are the antonyms present here when we talk about the big 5 factors. Either they are there or they are not there. So if you are calm and if you are either you are calm or you are anxious, either you are secure or you are insecure, either you are fun loving or you are alienable, either you are imaginative or you are practical, either you are soft-hearted or you are ruthless, if you are organized or you are disorganized. Both the characteristics of personality cannot happen together. So it's in either or personality. So they all come from emotional stability, extroversion, agreeability, openness and conciseness. So these are the big 5 factors. Now taking this forward, today we have now with us the psychoneutic perspective of personalities, that is the Sigmund Freud. Now there is a role of consciousness. The first is unconsciousness, the second is a pre-consciousness, and the last is the consciousness. The unconsciousness is understood to be a part of the mind which is hidden from the view. That is, we talk about every now and then that in the unconscious mind, everyone tries to be honest, everyone tries to do the best possible efforts, so on and so forth. So this part of unconsciousness state of mind is not visible, and it is a kind of a hidden factor which is in front of every individual. Now taking it forward, we have another, that is the pre-consciousness. The pre-consciousness is represented by the waterline, but it is the zone in which there are fleeting glimpses of unconscious flickering according to the screen of consciousness. And the last is the conscious. The relatively small part which sticks to the water is seen as equivalent to the small part of conscious awareness that the human experiences. So we have talked about here the different states of mind. The first is the unconsciousness, that is a hidden part. Then we have a pre-consciousness, that is there is a waterline which tries to connect between the unconscious and the conscious state of mind. And the last is the conscious. The conscious is the present state of mind in which you are able to do the things which you need to do. And of course, you try to be having the awareness in front of you. Whatever you do, you experience that. So there is a difference between the unconscious state of mind and the conscious state of mind. Now let us see this diagram which is on the screen, the Freud conception of the human psyche, which is also called as the iceberg metaphor. This is very important for you to understand here. We start from an ID. I'll be explaining these concepts one by one, but you must see this diagram first. It starts from ID. The next is your unconscious. The third is your ego. The fourth is your superego. Next is your pre-consciousness, and the last is the consciousness. So ego is a kind of a free floating in all the 3 levels, but the difference is that it is different at different levels. And if you see again on the screen, we have on the right side of the screen as non-consciousness. So let us have the screen again in front of us. The Freud conception of the human psyche, the iceberg metaphor. It starts from the ID, unconsciousness, ego, superego, pre-conscious and the conscious state of mind. And of course, these are the state of mind which is sometimes hidden and sometimes in front of you. Whereas the last stage is a non-conscious, that is you are not unaware of your surroundings, you are unaware about your deeds, you are unaware about your workings. Now let us build this model because it is very important from the human organization point of view, that is the model of personality. There are elements of personality according to Freud's view. The first we have already talked about is the ID. The second is the ego. The third is a superego. And let us do this according to the diagram which is in front of the screen. The Freud's topographical model of personality. If you see, there is on the right side there is rising sun. That means you are conscious. Your brain is very active. Whatever you are doing, you are aware of these factors. You are aware of the actions. You are aware of the surroundings. So this is a conscious state of mind of an individual. Now let us see the pre-conscious stage. In the pre-conscious stage, there is an ego, whereas in the unconscious stage, there is a superego and the ID. So let us categorize these into 3 parts, that is the unconsciousness, the pre-consciousness and the conscious. So the superego and the ID are a part of unconsciousness. The pre-consciousness is a part of the ego, and when you're cautious, that means you're aware of the the actions which you're doing, and your personality reflects what you're doing. So we'll be discussing these one by one. So first is the ID. What is an ID? The primary component of a personality. The next is your pleasure principle. Then we have the strives for intermediate satisfaction of all desires, needs and wants. Then we have an example that if an infant feels hungry, he will cry till his wants are satisfied. The ID fails, the result in tension and anxiety. So here we have taken the example of an infant or a child. The second is your ego, that is responsible for dealing with reality. Reality principle weighs the cost of doing or abandoning something. It discharges the tension by finding the object in the real world created by ID. Then we have a super ego state in front of us, that is, it holds of our internalized moral standards that we acquire from the parents, society. So which has two parts. The first is the ego ideal, that is the good behavior, and the next is the conscious, that is the bad behavior. Now let me explain this fruit theory of consciousness. Now if you see, there are three individuals standing in front of your screen. On the left hand side we have the ID, in the middle we have the ego, and in the last we have a super ego. The ID says, I want it now. That is, I gave you an example of an infant. The infant will start crying if he is hungry, and till the time he gets the milk, he'll keep on crying. And if the ID is failed, it results into a kind of an anxiety and the bad behavior, etc. Whereas if you enter the ego part of the human mind, as far as the personality is concerned, the reasoning comes into play. That is, I need to go a bit of planning to get it. Now the third is your super ego state. Now the super ego states that, no, I do not want to do it because it is not right. So here you are actually cautious about your surroundings, you're cautious about your deeds and actions, and you can very well have an interplay of the reasoning behind your actions. So this is how the personality is built up. So the first factor is the ID, that is, you want it now, whether it is right or wrong, in any case you need it. The second is your ego, that is, I need to do it, but a planning is needed here. Whereas the last is, you cannot have it because it is not right, is a result of a super ego of a human mind, because these are the factors which affect the personality of an individual. Now we come on to the a very different and a good area of the personality, that is the defense mechanism. A defense mechanism is a tactic developed by the ego to protect against the anxiety. The defense mechanisms are thought to safeguard the mind against the feelings and thoughts that are too difficult for the conscious mind to cope up with. The first is your repression, the second is your projection, the third is your denial, the fourth is the rationalization, the fifth is a regression, the sixth is a reaction formation, the next is your displacement, and the last is your sublimation. So we'll be discussing these one by one. Now what is a repression? The removal of threatening thoughts from awareness. The projection is what? It is the attribution of unacceptable impulses to others. The denial is what? The refusal to recognize a threatening situation or thought. The rationalization gives importance to the giving a reasonable explanation for an event. The regression is all about the return to a less mature, anxiety-reducing behavior. The reaction formation is all about the expression of the opposite of disturbing ideas. Displacement is all about substituting a less threatening object for impulse. And the sublimation is the channelizing of impulses to socially acceptable outlets. Now, what is a personality development? the Freud advanced a theory of personality development that centered on the effects of a job and of course the kind of individual development and the zones which are important in this regard. The Oedipus complex in the psychoanalytic theory is a group of largely unconscious, that is dynamically repressed ideas and the feelings which center around the desire to possess the parent of an opposite sex and eliminate the parent of the same sex. Accordingly, the classical theory, the complex appears during so-called ordinal phase of libidimal and ego development between the ages of 3 to 5, though the ordinal manifestations may be detected earlier. So, we have discussed now the various theories relating to the personality. Now is the time to discuss the social cognitive theories. According to Bandura's theory, there is a self system, there is a observant system. The self system is all about the set of cognitive process by which a person observes, evaluates, regulates his or her behavior. Bandura proposed that we think as a personality is a product of this self system. The children observe behavior of models such as the parents in their social environment, particularly if they are reinforced. The children will imitate these behaviors, incorporating them into their personality. The Bandura also proposed that people observe their own behavior and judge its effectiveness. The self-efficacy, a judgment of one's effectiveness in dealing with the particular situations. Now, this is a very interesting theory of personality. The adolescents, the children who are less in age, they imitate their models, and in their life the models could be their elder siblings, it could be their parents, it could be their grandparents. So whatever personality traits they see in their parents or their grandparents or their siblings, they want to imitate them in their personal lives. So this is a kind of a Bandura theory, then this is also called as a self system. They automatically try and imitate and make their personality according to what they have seen in their parents, siblings and elders, or could be some elder relatives. So this self-efficacy is a judgment of one's effectiveness in dealing with the particular situations. Now basically when you talk about the Bandura's theory, this is a very famous theory in the globalized world of today and is applicable also, because child is the biggest imitator in his life, because the child is in a tender age. So the personality is built up according to what he sees in the the prevalent areas which are in front of the child, because he is not that outgoing, he does not leave the world outside, not that self outgoing in terms of going into the societies or going to a party, etc. The life is confined to going to a school and whatever they see in the family. So for them, the family stars become the ideals. They try to imitate them, and this is the most USP of this Bandura theory of personality, that they try and build their personality according to their models. That is, they automatically make an image of, like the child likes mother most, so will follow the mother's characteristics. If the child like father most, so they try and imitate what the father does in there. So these are these systems which are incorporated without any force, because it is their by own choice that they want to become like this or they are going to become like that. So this is a very important theory which is also called as a self-cognitive theory of personality. So after this we will be discussing certain more theories. Thank you so much. So now we will be discussing on the humanism, that is the humanistic theory of development. Now humanism approach of the personality theory talks about that the humans experience a lot of problems, lot of realities, lot of ideals in their journey of life. And as a matter of fact, the human nature, they have their own traits, they have their own qualities, potentials, behavior patterns, and most characteristic of the humans. They have a free choice, that is ability to choose, that is not controlled by the genetics, learning or unconscious forces. There is a subjective experience, that is the private perception of reality. Now the most important factor in the humanism is that the individuals, they are when they are sailing in their life journey, they experience a lot of reality in their life, what is happening around in their life. So they are very close to reality, and their behavior patterns are completely influenced by these journey and these voyages. So they have a subjective experience which is very close to reality, and the private perceptions also influence a lot as far as the humanism personality theory is concerned. Now we come on to the Maslow theory. The Abraham Maslow is considered as a father of humanistic movement. He believes that the life of purportedly healthy and the creative people to develop is the theory. The hierarchy of needs he talks about, that is the motivational component of Maslow theory, is that our innate needs which motivate our actions are hierarchically arranged. The self-actualization is the fullest realization of the person's potentials. So the USP of the Maslow's theory of need hierarchy is that there are certain needs which motivates our actions to push ourselves towards that direction. And as a matter of fact, these needs are arranged in the hierarchy theory. That is, the physiological needs have to be complete, then the safety needs are there, the social needs are there, the ego and the esteem needs are there, and the final stage of the Maslow need hierarchy theory is a self-actualization need. So that means that is the fullest form of achieving your self-consciousness and the fullest realizations of the person's potential in this regard. Now the graphic hierarchy theory is in front of you. The Maslow's hierarchy needs. The first is the physiological needs. The physiological needs covers the air, food, water, sleep, etc. Then we have the second is the safety and security need. The next is your love and belonging, esteem and self-esteem, and the last is the self-actualization. So basically these are the basic needs first which the Maslow says that they have to be fulfilled first, and automatically there is an interplay of one need after the other, and after the physiological safety, security, love, belongingness, self-esteem, we come on to the self-actualization needs. The self-actualization needs are expressed through the meta needs, that is the wholesomeness, perfection, completion, justice, richness, simplicity, aliveness, beauty, godness, uniqueness, playfulness, truth, autonomy, and meaningfulness. So these are the theories which we have talked about as far as the self-actualization needs are concerned. So let us have a look on a complete picture of what self-actualized people have the characteristics. So this is a very most important thing, because this is the final stage of the Maslow need hierarchy theory, that if you are able to achieve the self-actualization needs, what particular characteristics an individual has. Let us have a look on this. The first is the efficient perceptions of reality. The second is comfortable acceptance of self, others and nature. The next is the spontaneity, task centering, autonomy, continued freshness of appreciation, fellowship with humanity, profound interpersonal relationships, comfort with solitude, non-hostile sense of humor, peak experiences. So these are the particular characteristics of a self-actualized people. Now we have Carl Rogers' self theory, which we will be discussing in detail now. The Carl Rogers was an American psychologist. He believed that personality formed as a result of our striving to reach our full human potential. Fully functioning person lives in harmony with his or her deepest feelings and impulses. There is a self-image that is the total subjective perception of your body and personality. The conditions of worth, that is the behavior and attitude for which other people, starting with our parents, will give us the positive regard. Then we have unconditional positive regard, that is the unshakable love and approval. The positive self-regard, that is the thinking of oneself as a good, lovable, worthwhile person. So, everyone in this world, we try and be the best individual in the world. So, in this journey of striving the best personality in this world, we have to function in a very different way, leaving aside all your bad behaviors, but inculcating all good habits, working with harmony and peace, and having a very good perception and good attitude in life. And of course, the love and approval is on the top of this theory, and thinking about oneness as a good, lovable, worthwhile person rather than you, we have a we feeling in this regard. So, this is a very remarkable theory of personality which talks about the Carl Rogers self theory. Now, we have a behavioral personality theories. Behavioral theory suggests that personality is a result of interaction between the individual and the environment. Behavioral theories study observable and measurable behaviors, rejecting the theories that take internal thoughts and feelings into account. Now we have another theory which is propounded by B.F. Skinner, theory of behavior. The Skinner's theory is based on the operant conditioning, which means that the organisms is operating on the environment. The organisms will encounter a special kind of reinforcing stimulus or simply a reinforcement. The reinforcement increases a behavior and punishment decreases or ends it. Then we have M. Shabad Ali Shukra and the psychologist GC University, Lahore, Bangalore. So we have discussed here a lot of different theories in this regard which talks about the behavior of an individual, the personality of an individual, what are the basic features of different types of theories, and what is an ego, sub-ego, super-ego, etc. So, we will be discussing now in brief all the theories which we have done today, so that we are able to have a proper recap of the personality theories. So, I will start with the concept of personality. The personality is a set of the particular dynamic characteristics which is possessed by an individual, which directs the and the cognitions, the behavior in the various situations. And nowadays, if you see the individual personalities, they keep changing, and people wear different kind of mask. You never come to know what kind of a person is he. Is he a good person or is he a bad person? Because of the dynamism which is happening around in this, the contemporary world of today, that people, they keep changing their personality also. You never come to know that what will happen what. So people have become unpredictable, and it is very, if the people are unpredictable, it is very difficult for an employer to control the employees who are having this kind of a personality, because it's a Latin word which means mask. So people wear different types of masks to show that they have a good personalities, but if you see the inside and if you try to lift the veil, the personality is altogether different. So we talked about the different theories today. The first theory which we discussed was a trait theory. Then we have a psychodynamic theory, social cognitive theory, humanistic theories, behavioral personality theories. So these are the different types of personalities which we have seen today. So we'll be giving the explanation of each one by one, because it's a kind of a very a different perspective which we are discussing today. So the things have to be reinforced, the things have to be redrafted, and a kind of a recap is needed in this regard. So we are doing it again. The trait theories is basically to learn about the traits and make up a personality and how they relate to the actual behavior. So whatever traits an individual has, their traits, they influence the individual behavior. So it becomes a trait theory, because whatever the traits are present in an individual, they influence the kind of behavior of an individual. So we call it as a trait theories of personality. Then we talked about the psychodynamic theories. Every now and then there are a lot of conflicts which are happening in an individual. So, sometimes our inner voice say that yes, we do it. Sometimes our inner voice says, no, you cannot do it. So there is a strong struggle which is happening around inside us. There is a strong, the conflicts which are happening around us, which we do not come to know that which is good or bad. So this psychodynamic theory talks about the interplay of these struggles and these interconflicts which is happening around, so which builds the personality. There is one concept, a right and a wrong concept. If your inner voice says that it is wrong, please do not do it. If your inner voice says that yes, it is good, then you do it. So it makes a lot of difference that whether it should be done or it should not be done. Then we have a humanistic theories. As a human being, we have a life journey. We have a different experience. We have a lot of, the perspectives around us, the real-time experiences around us, so which make our personality. If, as a matter of fact, right from your childhood till now, you have seen all wrong things in your life, all struggles in your life, so your personality will be influenced by those factors, your historical factors, which you have actually gone through, your life journey which you have gone through. So your personality will be done accordingly. But yes, on the flip side of it, if you have seen a very good life, always full of comfort, full of joy and cheerfulness, so your personality would be like that. So there's a lot of difference according to which what you have achieved in your life, how you have lived your life. It basically influences the personality of an individual. Then we have a social cognitive theories, that is the attribute differences in the personalities to socialization, expectations and mental process. So some people they want to socialize, some people they do not want to socialize. They want to live in their own comfort zone in which they feel that they are the king, and the moment they come out they become a beggar. So they do not want to even enter that domain, they are very happy in their own domain. So this is a social cognitive factor, that is the attribute differences of the personality. And similarly, the expectation levels are also different from people to people. There is a mental process also which is different from people to people. So then we talked about the different traits. So there are two types of people which we have talked about here, the introvert people and the extrovert people. The introvert people are very self-centered. They're very happy with themselves. They are very, very focused inward. Whereas if you see on the contrary of what extrovert means, the extrovert is an outgoing person whose attention is directed outward, and they're very happy doing and interacting with the outside world. Then we discussed the Hans Eyck, the English psychologist, believed that there are three fundamental factors in personalities: introversion versus extroversion, emotionally stable versus unstable, that is neurotic, impulse control versus psychotic. So we have discussed here the three types of factors, the introversion versus extroversion, which has already been done, emotionally stable versus unstable neurotic persons. Now see, if you see the different aspects of the life, we are very, very happy if we are stable. If we do not see any kind of a struggle, if we do not face any kind of a problem, we are very happy in our lives. But the moment life shows you the different colors, or there is a lot of struggle which is happening around, then you see the other side of it and you start feeling uncomfortable. There is an emotional outburst of your emotions, which is definitely bad as far as the decision making and rationality is concerned. So your behavior is influenced by the judgments, your wrong whims and fancies. So maybe the emotionally unstable persons are not good. Then we have impulse control versus psychotic people. Then we discussed about the combinations of the factors which is happening today. That is the introverted plus unstable, that is it results in sad and gloomy. Then we have choleric persons, that is they are extroverted plus unstable. They are either hot tempered or irritable. Then we have introverted plus stable, that is it gives us a lot of impact on the sluggishness and the calmness. The sanguine people are extroverted plus stable, that is the cheerfulness and the hopefulness. So here we have talked about as far as the Jungs theory is concerned, that you result into a combination of the factors and then there is an eventual the personality which is coming all. If you are introvert plus you are unstable, the result is that you are sad and gloomy, which is becomes a part of your personality. If you are extroverted plus unstable, you are either hot tempered or you are very irritable, which is not liked by the people at large. And similarly, we have introverted plus stable people, that is you become sluggish and you become calm. Then we have a sanguine people who are extroverted plus stable, that is the people are very cheerful and hopeful. So we are looking for the last combination, that is the extrovert plus stable, because the eventual personality which is coming out out of the combination is a very cheerful and a hopeful person, which gives a lot of joy in the life, very good comfort in the life, so on and so forth. Then we discussed about the Cattell's surface theory and traits. The surface traits, as the name suggests, they are visible. The source traits are not visible, they are underlined. So the Raymond Cattell's from the Devon English believe that these are the two categories of the traits which we have talked, and he talked about the 5 factors. The first is the openness, then we have conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeable and neuroticism. We talked about the big factors. These are very key factors which have to be kept in mind when the personality theories are to be discussed. If you are emotionally unstable or you are emotionally stable. If you are emotionally stable, you become calm and you become secure. On the other side, if you are emotionally unstable, you become an anxious person and then you become insecure. Because these are the dichotomies, these are either or, not both. Then we have extroversion, that is either you are sociable, that is fun loving, or you are retiring or sober. If your openness is there in your personality as a big 5 factor, you become imaginative, practical, independent and conforming. The agreeableness talks about the soft heartedness and trusting factor. On the contrary, we talked about the ruthless and the suspicious person. When we have the conscientiousness, that is either you are organized or you are unorganized, either you are careful or you are carefree. So these were the factors which we have discussed. Then we are coming on to a very important part of the conscious states of mind, which builds and influence the personality of an individual, which we have already discussed, but just a recap again. The first stage is the unconscious stage. The unconscious is understood to be a part which is hidden, which is not in front of everyone, and the individual will also not come to know, because what his unconscious mind is saying, that you always if you are a sweet natured, a good individual, your inner voice, your unconscious mind will always support you in your deeds. Then we have a preconscious stage which connects the unconscious and the conscious stage. The preconscious is represented by a waterline, but it is the zone in which there are fleeting glimpses of the unconsciousness flickering across the screen of consciousness. So it's a kind of a transitionary stage from unconsciousness to consciousness. Then we have a consciousness, that is the relatively small part which sticks to the water is seen as equivalent to the small amount of conscious awareness that the human experiences. So as a matter of fact, the role of consciousness plays a very significant role in determining the types of personalities of an individual. So if you see this iceberg metaphor in front of you, it starts from the ID to the unconsciousness, to the ego, to the super ego, and of course to the pre-conscious stage and to the conscious stage. And if you see on the right side of it, we have the unconscious stage. Then we talked about the elements of personalities according to Freud's view. The first is the ID, the second is the ego, and the last is the super ego. So it is a very important thing to be understood that when you talk about the ID and the super ego, they are a part of the unconscious stage, and if you talk about the ego, it's a kind of a preconscious stage, and the conscious stage is all about when you very well awaken and you know about your surroundings. So let us discuss now what an ID means. That is the primary component of the personality, the pleasure principle. It strives for immediate satisfaction of all the desires, needs and wants. For example, if an infant feels hungry, he always try and cry till his wants are satisfied. The ID fails results in tension and anxiety. So this is the kind of a infant behavior, that is, he'll keep on crying for the milk till the time he gets the milk. So if you do not give him the milk, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of tension, and the child will keep on crying. The next stage is an ego stage, in which a kind of a reasoning comes into play. And of course, the responsibility for dealing with the reality is much more here. The reality principles weighs the cost of doing and abandoning something. It discharges the tension by finding the object in the real world life created by the ID. Then we have a very important factor called the super ego, which states that yes, you have to hold your moral standards. We have to acquire from the parents and society, which comes from the eagle ideal and the consciousness. So here you try to uphold the kind of reasoning, the kind of the standards which the society give us, which says that no, we do not want to do this act because it is not morally right. So this is the kind of a stage which that is a super ego stage, which definitely influence the personality type of an individual. So if you see on the screens the fruit theory of personality, the first is I want it now, is a part of ID. I need to do it, a bit of planning to get it is an ego set, and you cannot have it, it's not right, and it's a kind of a super ego state. So you can see the two eyes of the human being, and all the three states shows as a part of the brain. So there's a defense mechanism also, which is quite tactical in nature, and it safeguards our mind that if you are taking this action, this is the scenario. If you do not take this action, this is the scenario. So it is too difficult for the conscious mind to cope up with all these factors, which is also called as the defense mechanisms. There's a stage of repression, projection, denials, rationalization, regression, reaction, displacement, and sublimation. Now, as a matter of fact, when individuals, they uphold their morals, they uphold, and they are in a state of a super ego state of the mind. So there are so many stages which come and go, like they fight with themselves. There is an inner fight, there is an inner struggle to conclude that whatever you're doing is right or wrong. So either there is a repression, that is, you try and remove the threats from awareness. So because the threatening factor is one of the factors which will prohibit you to take any kind of a decision. So but yes, if you are in a state of a repression and you are able to wipe up those threatening thoughts, you will be a leader, because you are away from the negative aspects. Now you say you do it attitude, kind of a attitude is coming into personality, and you'll be able to flying with pass with the flying colors. So whereas sometimes there is a mind thought which gives you the projections. Projections are also very good, because sometimes the projections gives you a boost, and sometimes the projections can give you a feeling that you are not able to be a good player, so better be out of the market. So it has its own significance and meaning as far as the personality is concerned. Then we have sometimes a denial that yes, this thought is very bad and we'll not be able to take up this in the future. Then we have a rationalization, that if you take any action, you try to rationalize from the point of view of your point of view, and countering the event, you justify the happening of that event. Then we have a reaction formation, that is the disturbing ideas, the expression of the opposite of disturbing ideas. So there's a reaction formation, you try to reject them, you try to make a place in your mind. If you're able to reject them, you're again a winner. But yes, if you give them a place in your mind, your personality will be influenced negatively. So you have to develop your personality in terms of taking into consideration all these view factors, the overall the factors, etc. Then we discussed about the Behavioural theory, which is a social cognitive theory. This talks about as a matter of fact, from your childhood, you observe the behavior of your parents, your siblings, your elders, and if they are reinforced in your mindset, you try and copy that event, you try to imitate them in your personal lives. So as a matter of fact, you incorporate them in your behavior also. So the Bandura theory is a very important theory of the personality, which states that a child will follow the ideal. The ideal could be the parents, it could be a senior person in your family, it could be a senior sibling also. So there is a system of the kind of a copying in your life. Then we talked about the Rotter's theory, that is the internal locus of control and the external locus of control. The Julian Rotter, that is the American psychiatrist, became a feudician. His personality theory combines the learning principles, modeling, cognition and effects of social relationships. The external locus of control is about the perfection, that is the chance or external forces beyond the personal control which determines the one's fate. Then we have an internal locus of control, which is a perception that you control your own fate. And the learned helplessness is a sense of hopelessness in which a person thinks that he or she is able to prevent the avertive events which they are actually not able to do that. Then we discussed the humanistic theories, which talks about the real-time experience and according to which your personality is affected. Then we discussed about the Maslow's theory, which talks about the need which is in play, which pushes you towards a particular action, the unsatisfaction of which is a kind of a dissatisfier, and they are all arranged in a hierarchical order, right from the psychological needs, physiological needs, to the social, to the safety needs, then to the self-esteem needs and the ego needs and the self-actualization. The final and the eventual step is the self-actualization. We showed you the graphical presentation of also. We discussed the characteristics of the self-actualized people, that is, they are very spontaneous, they are very comfortable, they are satisfied, they are profound, they are having the best interpersonal relationships, and as far as the solitude is concerned, they are very comfort in this regard, and they have the peak experience in their life. Then we discussed about the Carl Rogers self theory, which was an American psychologist. He believed that personality formed as a result of us striving to reach our full human potential. So as a matter of fact, if you try and do the concepts and try to achieve the maximum potentials of an individual, you become the best personality. The last theory which we discussed was the behavioral personality theories, in which the behavior is a kind of a study which is observable and measurable and is affected by your past experiences, etc. Thank you so much.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for your kind inputs to the lecture. And dear friends, if you want to give your feedback for the lecture, then do write to us at info.cec@nic.in. We would be meeting again very soon and would be discussing on another topics under the series Organization Behavior. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.